Hello, I'm Maria Ressa, and this is our second edition for #WineMining Today. We have in the Rappler studio Mike Toledo, the Senior Vice President for Corporate Affairs of Philex Mining. It is the largest mining company in the Philippines. He was also, if you remember, he was the former press secretary and spokesman for former President Joseph Estrada. He most recently was the president of Weber Shandwick. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for coming to the studio today.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, and good afternoon to all your listeners. Thank you for having me here.
It's good to have you. Guys, if you have any questions for the mining side this time around, please tweet them to @rappler.com or to me, and use the #WhyMining so we can continue our conversation. Mike, EO79 came out this week. What's your reaction to it?
Well, the thing about the executive order is that at least now the government has come out with a policy. In any business, what is essential is predictability and clarity. So now that the government took a very good first step in the right direction, which is laying down a policy, very clear as to more or less what government wants, then that's a good start. But having said that, if one goes through the EO, it is clear that there are still a lot of things to be done. And there are still, if I may say, some provisions that would require more explanation or clarification perhaps. Perhaps this will be answered by amendments to the law that will be coming, or perhaps the internal rules and regulations that will be promulgated by the MICC, or the Mineral Industries Consultative Council, that is mandated by the EO to come up with the necessary rules and amendments to the law.
That's the group that's essentially going to be the governing body now, right?
That is the group
correct?
Together with the DNR.
Yes.
And it's composed of the economic cluster, as well as the climate adjustment cluster, including the president of the ULAP, the NICP, and one other organization, if I'm not mistaken. What is notable, though, is that no one from the mining industry is asked to sit on the MICC, and I feel that perhaps that is something that should be revisited and should be checked, because definitely the industry stakeholders should be properly represented in such a powerful, if I may say, it's a powerful consultative body.
Correct. Do you see this executive order? Is it large? Can it be seen as pro-mining or anti-mining?
You know, there's a saying that goes that if two people or two groups meet up and discuss something, and they leave the meeting both feeling not entirely happy about it, that you have a compromise. So perhaps we could say that this is a compromise at this stage. It is definitely better than where we started, because as I mentioned earlier, now there is clarity, there is predictability, we know where the government is going. But then again, as I mentioned too, there's still a need to refine a lot of these things, and perhaps that is also the objective of the executive order.
What's Philex's reaction to Section 1, which expands the no-go areas for mining in the Philippines? It includes agricultural lands, tourism areas, and island ecosystems.
Well, first of all, it's about time that we have a clear policy on what areas one should engage in as far as mining is concerned. This, in my opinion, augurs well for both parties. One, it will not waste the time of a mining company or of government in going to an area which at the end of the day they will consider as an area wherein there's no go as far as mining is concerned. So there's a clear delineation, and that's good. Business-wise, policy-wise, I think, and even politically, it's a good move. As far as Philex is concerned, we would like to state the fact that we have never operated in any areas that are involved, rather being used for tourism. The areas where we operate, especially in our Padcal operations, is clearly an area that is for mining. Because mining, maybe like other industries, is very location specific.
Explain that, because again, anti-mining advocates say that that mining is bad for agriculture, that it rips up the land, that it kills the resources.
Yes, most of the mining sites, for example, that Philex operates in, especially the biggest one in Padcal, it's an area where definitely it's not suitable for any other industry but mining. Agriculture will not be possible there, or a very, shall we say, economically sustainable agricultural industry because of the type of soil, because of the slope of the area,
The land itself.
and the land itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In fact, these lands would not be accessible were it not for the mining companies like Philex providing for the infrastructure, electricity and water to make sure that these are habitable and accessible.
Yeah.
So the areas where mining companies would want to, like in Philex, for example, or
Yes.
I can't really speak for the other mining companies, but usually the areas that they would like to mine are areas that are not suitable for any type of industry. But then again,
Yes.
of course, nothing is absolute. There may be areas indeed, and I think the geologists and the experts should be the one to provide the information, and that is why it is very important, and it's provided for in the executive order, that there be a mapping.
Correct.
A mapping of the areas. Definitely, there are areas there wherein it would not be suitable for mining. There perhaps could be some minerals. However, at the end of the day, it's not suitable for mining because it will affect the total ecosystem. Then in those areas, then mining shouldn't be allowed.
Yes. One of the things that few of us know is that the Philippines is ranked number 5 in the world in terms of mineral resources. Now, the EO also provides a moratorium on any new mining permits. What do you make of that? How do you guys react?
Well, the good thing about the EO is that it respects vested rights, or it respects contracts that are already in force and in effect.
Yes.
And that is a good sign, and that sends a good signal to our both local and foreign investors that the Philippines is a country governed by the rule of law and not the rule of men, because we respect existing contracts. However, there is indeed a moratorium which will only be lifted when two conditions are met, one of which is the passage of legislation that would provide for a clear-cut, equitable revenue sharing between the mining companies and government.
Right.
Well, our hope and I speak on behalf of Philex, of course, and I understand that the industry as well
Yes.
feels the same way. In fact, I think the Makati Business Club also recently in a statement said the same thing, that yes, okay, there's a moratorium now. There were good points being raised in the EO, which is one, the primacy of national laws over local laws, the no-go zones, and the revenue sharing measures.
Yes.
But then again, there is still this moratorium which hinges on the passage of certain legislation.
Yes.
We are hoping that the President, of course, would certify as urgent.
Yes.
And the MICC as well as the DNR can immediately come up with these laws, so that these laws, when properly studied and then
Yes.
proper consultations are made, are submitted to the President to be certified as urgent bills, can be now passed so that the moratorium can be lifted.
On these laws that dictate revenue sharing, right? The laws dictate it. So the executive cannot actually act on it unilaterally. It has to come from the legislature. Is that correct?
Yes, because the Constitution is quite clear that anything that deals with revenue and taxes, it's the primordial responsibility of Congress or the legislature.
And then there also is right now a pending case at the Supreme Court that is also looking at the revenue sharing of mining companies.
I'm not so sure if there is one now, but it seems that there is such an issue being raised in the Supreme Court. But then again, it's still pending.
Right.
Yeah.
So for Philex, I've heard your chairman speak about this before. What is an equitable share? I mean, where is Philex? Where is the fair shake here?
Well, our stand has always been simple in the sense that we always have said that we are open and flexible
Yes.
for our equitable revenue sharing. We understand, of course, the need for government to fund its various socio-economic projects. Very important indeed. And we have been very supportive of that. And that support is shown by the fact that Philex, as well as the other companies within the group, has always been one of the top taxpayers of this
Right.
country, if
So
I may
just-
say.
So just statistics-wise, though, mining companies contribute about 2% of the tax revenues for the country. Is that correct? But Philex gives 31 to 32% of taxes. Is that correct?
Yes, in fact, if one looks at our records, and the records would speak for itself, I think 24% of our revenues actually goes to the payment of taxes, and that's quite substantial. And this would include royalties being paid, excise taxes being paid, fees to indigenous people, and of course all the other forms of taxes from property tax, business tax, local tax, and all that. But having said that,
Yes.
we are indeed open to a fair, reasonable, progressive rate of taxation to govern our industry, because while we are willing, of course,
Yes.
to be flexible and study the possibility of increasing tax payments,
Yes.
let's make sure, of course, that you don't tax out business. I mean, you don't
Correct.
tax them out of business. That's very important. Otherwise, if you tax them out of business, you'll be killing an industry
Yes.
that has been paying taxes and direct and indirect taxes, by the way,
Yes.
as well as providing a lot of basic infrastructure, livelihood programs, employment to a lot of people, especially in areas where it is much needed.
Yes. Let me ask you, Jerry Brimo, who also heads another major
Yes.
mining voice, has said that the companies who are paying taxes are about half of it, but that there's a bigger chunk of mining of gold or ore that has been mined that no taxes are being paid on because they come from small scale mining. Or is that correct? As high as 50%, I think, is what he had said.
I've read and I've heard a number of figures, and indeed it reaches about something like that. And it's
So it
true.
is that. So what is the
It's-
problem with small scale mining, and
Well,
what can be done?
The problem with small scale mining is it's difficult to monitor them. Of course, they're not reported. They don't follow essentially basic good governance rules and principles, for the simple reason that I guess, by the mere fact that they're a small outfit, some of them in fact are illegal, and that's the
Yes.
sad part. So there is really a need to regulate them, and the executive order takes a step forward in ensuring that they're regulated, that they will be only operating in a minahang bayan,
Yes.
and then that the local governments are given the responsibility together with the DNR to regulate their activities, and they cannot go into other minerals except, if I'm not mistaken, gold or copper, nor can they use equipment that's not supposed to be small scale,
Yes.
or use prohibited chemicals like mercury.
Right.
So definitely, just like perhaps the underground economy, wherein some of these are left untaxed, and that's something that the Commissioner Hinares, of course, is doing her best
Yes.
to get. There's a need to be able to tap to regulate, monitor the small-scale miners, so they're able to pay the correct taxes, as well as comply with the basic environmental requirements.
So let me ask you for a reality check. How is the government positioned to actually regulate? You know, in the areas, for example, it's already stated in the EO, Minahang Bayan, but does it have the infrastructure to actually keep them, stop them? Can it do it?
I believe that definitely the intention is there. We have very good people in government. Sad to say that sometimes a lot of government people are maligned because of bad apples from time to time.
Yes.
But I've seen the people of the DNR and the MGB, headed by Leo Hasareno. He's
Yes.
a very competent man, and they are definitely doing their best to ensure that mining thrives in this country. At the same time, the environment is protected. But sad to say, from the information that I've gathered since I came on working on for Philex for the past couple of months, it would seem that there is really a lack of manpower. Lack of manpower, and it's so hard to monitor a huge tract of land, wherein you only have a few people that can actually monitor it. For example, I understand in the issue about illegal logging, for example,
Correct.
how can one forest ranger, for example, monitor huge hectarage of land if only you're one or two people there? And perhaps there's need to definitely improve the technological capability of our people out
Yes.
there. That is why we in the industry, and Philex in particular, we have always been willing to offer our services to help government in that sense, to be able to provide government perhaps with additional technology, equipment, to be able to help them help everyone
Monitor.
monitor
Yes.